What's up guys, ampfy today bringing you guys another bootcamp video. In today's video, the topic of discussion is H1Z1 user options and what each one exactly does. Alright, so to start off, what we're going to want to do first is go into our user options. If you don't know how to go into your user options, I will explain it right now. So you want to right click, go to properties, underneath your library in Steam, go to local files, browse local files, scroll down to the user options, and here we are. So now that we're on the user options page, I'm gonna explain a little bit of what each one does. So for me, I have a res that is 1680 by 1050. It's a 16 by 10 res. Res is really just personal preference. I feel like 1680 1050 register shots a lot better than 1920 by 1080. But like I said, just personal preference, so you can choose what works for you. The first setting I want to talk about is HD Pixel Plus. Now, I have mine set to 1.2. 1.1 is ultra, 1.0 is high, 0.9 is medium, and 0.8 is low. The higher the HD Pixel Plus, the more clear it will look. If the setting is set too low, it'll start to look very pixelated and sort of like Minecraft. Moving down to the rendering category, you'll see effects quality. I have mine set to 2. This setting allows you to see in-game effects such as explosions, bullet drops, etc. You can set it between 0 to 3, but for me, 2 is good and won't make a difference on your FPS. Moving forward, the next setting is overall quality. I have mine set to -1. When it's set to -1, it's a custom setting for overall quality. 1 through 3, 1 is going to be low, 2 is going to be medium, and 3 is going to be high. So if you have custom user options, you're going to want to set this to -1. Next up, we have texture quality. Now, I'm not 100% sure on what this exactly does, but I have mine set to 2. Now, this setting is a bit of a touchy subject for H1 players. Shadow quality. For shadows, if you have the shadows turned off, like in Z1, you would set this to 0, and it would increase FPS greatly. But since they came out with a new UI with the launch of Z2 and everything, setting this to 1 is the lowest that you can set it to, so it's probably going to be your best option. For my flora quality, I have it set to 1. Really, all this does is just kind of changes what the grass and the environment looks like around you. If you want more FPS, you're definitely going to want to set this to a low setting. Render distance, I have set at 1000. I usually like to start out with, when I'm parachuting, having it at 1500 and bumping it down to 500 once I land and reach the ground. Once bombs comes out, I usually like to increase this to 1000, but no more than that. You can adjust the render distance with the bracket keys, as I kind of talked about in my last video of parachuting, if you guys want to check that one out. But like I said, having anything over 2000 is a little bit of overkill and will decrease the amount of FPS that you get drastically. For my depth of field, I have the setting turned to 0. What it would do, it would kind of add a little blur while ADSing. If you played Z1 and had your effects quality to 3, it would add a blur that almost tunnel visioned you in, so you couldn't see things to your left or right. It would just focus on the center. So I recommend turning this off and having it set to 0 if you don't already. Next up, for my gamma, I have it set to 0. Some people might have it set a little bit higher. I like to adjust my brightness, which is what gamma is, in my NVIDIA control panel using digital vibrance. If you guys don't know how to use digital vibrance, I can definitely make a tutorial if you guys want me to on how to use it, but just let me know in the comment section below. For my maximum FPS, I have it set to -1. Setting this to -1 makes it so your frames are uncapped. It's basically like setting your FPS max to 0 in CSGO. This is only recommended if you have a pretty beefy computer build that can support the uncapped FPS instead of, like, 150 to 200. For use low LOD 0A, I have it set to 1. Basically, this setting just changes the shape of objects at a distance. Smoothing, this is another one that I'm not 100% sure on what it does, but I have it set to 0. I've heard from a lot of people that it can cause massive frame drops, so if you want to have more FPS, it's recommended to set this to 0 as well. Vertical FOV, I have mine set to 65. Really, guys, this is just personal preference on what works for you. You know, kind of mess around with it a little bit, but like I said, personal preference. For my model quality, I have it set to 3. Now, you don't need to have this set to 3, but if you have it set lower, it'll make like your t-shirts and your pants and stuff with text on it a lot more blurry. So if you have it set to 3, it's going to be nice and clear for you, which is what I like to use. It's really one of the only settings that I have set to high. For fog shadow enable, I have this set to 0. This basically just changes the look on fog and gas. Setting this to 0 makes it a little easier to see in the gas, and less fog is going to make players more visible than people that have this set higher. For my AO, I have it set to 0. AO stands for ambient occlusion, and having this on 1 can cause a lot of frame drops, so I recommend setting this to 0. Next up, VSync, I have set to 0. Having this set to 1 will lock your FPS, and you will not be able to get the actual FPS your computer can actually provide. For my particle LOD, I have it set to 2. Having particle LOD and effects quality at 2 help each other coincide. Both of these will make it so you can see where the shots are hitting, because dirt will be kicked up, so using this will help with learning bullet drop. Moving down to the general category, you'll see sensitivity. Now, this is one of the most common things I get asked in my chat, is like what my sensitivity is. Really, this is all personal preference, what works for you. It's best to find the right DPI. I use 400. It's one of the most recommended ones, between 400 and 800 for what works best for getting that sensitivity nailed down to the point where you're being consistent and hitting lots of shots. Now you'll see I have raw mouse input equal to 1 and mouse smoothing equal to 0. So having these, it basically just makes the game less clunky and play a bit more like CSGO if you've played that. I've had these settings for a while and kind of learned about them over Reddit, so I just kind of kept them in my user options, and when I first started using them, I saw a huge difference, so maybe give them a try. Now, this is a very common question I get in my stream as well. Trying to get that circle in first person for the shotgun. If you go to reticle classic mode and you set that to 1 instead of 0, it will give you that circle around your shotgun when you go first person. Alrighty, guys, that just about wraps up the video. If you guys want my user options, it'll be in the description below. Ideas for more bootcamp tutorials are appreciated, so feel free to leave them in the comments. Be sure to give thoughts on what you thought of the video, or maybe just tell me how your day is going. I do my best to respond to all comments. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Also, if you haven't already done so, be sure to subscribe for more content like stream highlights, montages, and of course, more bootcamp videos. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye!